I have taken them up too.
So you just have enough, is there, you have just enough people writing to see you?
We used to only have $15 to fix them.
We have board trustees.
But, well, then we,
Troy.
straight comes, Tom gets it.
We all thought it was March 13th.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, no. Yes, I think it is. But I know this.
Everybody's scared of me. Just kidding.
Got rid of one parade, but.
Agreement for service for planning is stressed on the agenda. I was looking back and we actually approved that.
I was gonna bring that up. That was the second thing. I was pulling up the meeting to see what it actually happened.
Yeah, it was the first thing that
Over here. Huh? Whatever happened over here by the railroad tracks.
That's your best friend for the move out.
Semi-roll.
Is the driver okay?
Yeah.
I got a text message from a couple.
What do you take, order too fast?
Yeah, it's each one. Yeah.
Oh, kind of what it was.
Thought he was right.
I'm quite in the car.
Too soon.
Slow speeds, but.
Alright, I call the order the meeting of February 18th, 2020. Can I have a moment of silence for all those who serve inside and outside our borders, please? All right. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call, please, Mary?
Mayor Adrian Sandoval.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark.
Here.
Harold Leggett. Nick Ralston.
Here.
Spencer Bradnan.
Here.
Troy Blum.
Here.
Hope Morris.
Here. All right. Can I entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of 8B, action item B, the agreement for services, strike that.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving forward, audience participation. Do we have anybody? Okay. Moving on, approval of the consent agenda, which includes the agreement for services, renewal of the Humane Society of Weld County, the agreement for services for keyless entry system at the community center, FNC Door Check and Lock Services Incorporated, minutes of the February 4th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, January financials, and the January paid bills.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving into action items. 8A, Platteville Economic Development Strategic Plan Adoption. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. After about 6 months of work on the plan, it is being brought to the board tonight for adoption. With us tonight is Cheryl, hiding in the back. Cheryl, why don't you come on up? Come
All
on
the way in the back. You
I
can
you
get
couldn't
farther
get away
back.
with that.
I'm shy.
You're not supposed to laugh at that.
Cheryl, I want to turn over to you to summarize where we're at and why we're here, and if you would like, then we'll ask for any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's nice to see all of you in the same place at the same time. I was just thinking about a few months ago what Troy put into words, and that is we started back in September. And it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but by gosh, has a lot happened with your plan since then. So I wanted to take a few minutes and just cover the process, and then go into the plan and your marketing brochure, and happy to take questions at any point throughout this. I know most of you were able to participate at one point or another, and in many cases all through the process. So if you have anything to add to this, please do that as well. You know that DOLA was a significant funder of this particular plan, so I wanted to say thank you to them. I also wanted to say a big thank you to your steering committee, they were the group that really met multiple times during this project, gave me feedback, gave me guidance, helped spread the word about the plan. Read email after email from us about contents and revisions, so they really put hard work and effort into that plan. And the final thank you I want to mention tonight is everybody who sort of stepped up to the plate in the community and either had the opportunity to participate in one of our surveys or wrote an answer on one of our flip charts, or maybe even were able to come to a community meeting. All of that input really went into the plan. And as you know, the way I try to design the plan is I just try to be a guide for you. I try to capture your exact words and your thoughts and then put it into a system that makes sense, and to make sure we refine that enough so that Troy and his team really have something that they can move forward with. So part of this plan is an actual implementation document, and it sort of synthesizes all the super detailed items. And Troy has a copy of that implementation plan, and it's the document that's still a work in progress. And it probably will be for some months, because one of the main things that came out of this, and I think it was something you had really wanted to happen, is we do have an economic development group that we will be having a first meeting of at some point next week. And I'm gonna stand from the sidelines and cheer and give any help and support I can to that. That's the brave group of people that stepped up to the plate and said, hey, yes, I do want to volunteer for something specific, and I want to make that happen within Platteville. So that's really encouraging to me to see that you have that kind of support within the community. It's my experience that that's the kind of support that's going to make it successful. And without that, it's really hard to keep those wheels in motion. You only have so many people and so much staff to do the work for you, so when the community gets together, it's great. So that process, September, hopefully you'll have an opportunity to adopt this plan tonight, but I would encourage you that it's not that it ends here. As I mentioned, there's the implementation side, but there's also the updating of the plan. Best practice is that every 3 months or so, the group gets back together and says, hey, let's give an update to the action steps we've been working on. And then they can give a report back up to the board. The board can ask questions, give feedback, things can change, move forward. And then at least once a year, this group, this board, needs to get together and say, are we still going in the right direction? Are these still the biggest areas of importance for us? Are these still the things we're trying to achieve? Maybe, I know for certain actually, that many of these will be checked off if I came back next year and said, hey y'all, how's it going? You'd show me that list of successes that you've been accomplishing throughout the course of the last year. So that's just a little bit about the process that we use. We then created a plan, and what I will say to you is one of the things that I think would be great to have happen, everybody knows this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is to have more really high quality, and by that I mean high resolution, images of Platteville. We had a lot of great photos, but the resolution isn't good enough to really use them. And you see some of that in the plan, it's still a little grainy. We are working on the resolution of those photos graphically. It's just easier to start with a super high quality resolution photo and then implement it. So not to worry, some of those photos will change out, and I think over time as you get the chance to take those really unique photos that really show who and what Platteville is all about, we can use those to separate out in the plan. You will get an original document, but I will tell you this, those types of changes are super easy. They take like 5 minutes, so I would be happy to help you update the plan like that. So let's go first to the marketing brochure, which is the shorter of your 2 documents. Those of you that have a copy that was sitting on the back, we did change the cover photo. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We now have a cover photo that actually is literally in Platteville. So we did change that cover photo, and that's important because the marketing brochure is a short document. What it's designed to do is market Platteville. So this is where you can add some things in the middle. If you're looking at a particular piece of land you're trying to let people know about, or a particular residential development, or a new retail opportunity, You can insert it, you can mail it out to people. It's certainly designed to be put on the web, but it's the sort of making Platteville shine and telling your story. And to that end, what I wanted to point out to you is throughout this document and the next document, your actual economic development strategic plan, we came up with a little tagline. And it's completely based on what your community feedback was. When I said what's special, they said, number one, the people here are special. You know, we know each other. We say hi to each other. We're friendly. We're welcoming. This really does feel like home. So the people were special. The second thing your community said was special was the location. Not just the fact that the town itself is kind of a cool little town and surrounded by ag land and has all those features that people really relate well to, but also the physical location of the town. Close to 85, close to 66, close to DIA. You know, you're not too far from Estes Park. It's just really a great place and easy to get around because you've got all those modes of transit going on. And then finally, the comment was that we have so many opportunities here, so many possibilities for people to participate. If you wanted to locate a business, if you needed a big piece of land, if you want a great home, if you want to build a new home, so the possibilities part. So that people, places, possibilities, pure Platteville. I laugh about being alliterative, but it seemed to fit. So you'll see that throughout here. The first section is just a little bit about Platteville, some of the history, some of the location. It's just a snapshot about who we are. And that cool train photo also came. It actually is Platteville. We created this map. It's typically called a driving distance map, but basically we wanted to show people how close you were to everywhere. And we also wanted to make sure they knew where Platteville was. So that's what that location map is. And then we have the snapshot. This community snapshot came straight from upstate Colorado, and it's the typical demographics that people want to know at a glance when they're looking at locating a business or investing in land or a residential development project. The page after that are some demographics. These were taken from the State Demographer's Office. And in each of these documents, the demographics are similar yet slightly different. I wanted to be able to tell as much of your story as I could, so I didn't want to be super repetitive. But here's your population forecast in Weld County, designed to grow. Obviously, we all know that. And the top growing occupations in the county, and then the business characteristics. So somebody can kind of see what the opportunities are. I think your biggest story is two things. The first is your population growth in the county, in the region area. But also, people think of us as solely maybe in oil and energy, natural gas development, maybe even agriculture. They don't understand that all businesses tend to flourish when business flourishes, especially like the financial sector. So I thought that was a really great graph to throw in there. We took the next map, which is your growth area, straight from your comprehensive plan. Obviously, those are not the boundaries of Platteville right now, and neither are they the annexed boundaries. So we wanted to be really clear what that was. Really, that's your opportunity for growth. The next two maps after that, yes, you do have to turn them sideways. Troy hates this, but I really wanted to create some maps that showed more of the detail behind Platteville. So you do have two. They both have a legend. You have the north side, if you will, encompassing Main Street and Highway 85. And you have, on the next map in, you have the south side. And of course, the south side has most of the businesses and that sort of concentrated core there. And I think this map could also potentially be used by the group that volunteered to do a shop local map, because we can take this map and make it even more zoomed in, if you will, and make those businesses more apparent. What we wanted to do is just show people what's in Platteville already and what some of those other businesses in town were and what some of those opportunities were as well. Speaking of opportunities, the next map over is just that, a general marking of where some potential investment opportunities are. It's not to say these properties are for sale, and it's certainly not meant to imply that. It's just meant to imply that there are some areas in town, and some, of course, the town owns and could certainly partner with someone on. But we mark them out by industrial, as well as rail access, commercial, and then residential. So 3 different colors. And then those resources, and we had a lot of feedback about this, and I think it really helped to improve the plan in terms of who we should list on the back page as a resource. And again, this sort of text is really, really easy to change. If anybody, by the way, When you look at this thing 42 times, I just miss typographical errors. And I know everybody helped me look at it, but I'll bet we missed a few. So yes, please do, if you catch something, don't tell anybody else, just tell me. And I'll pretend I knew all about it, and we'll let it go. And then the final page, another great photo of Platteville, and then sort of a contact setup. So let me stop there for a second and see if you had any questions, thoughts, ideas, feedback about the marketing brochure. I know this is probably the 14th time you've seen it, so you probably don't have much in the way of comment.
This is designed to actually have a kind of a bifold brochure that will develop, especially for that middle map that I love.
That he loves. Yes. So the intent of, thank you for bringing that up. You'll get all the original files, and Mary and I were just talking about this. So you'll get literally a print ready. You know, it has those print marks on it with the bleed to the edge, etc. And then you get this version, which is more of a web version, and there are ways to make it more readable on the web. But the print version is designed to have that map in the middle, so that when you fold it out, you don't have to like flip pages over. You can just turn it sideways. Still, sorry, still reading.
I think it's great, thank you.
I do too, I think it's a great brochure.
Like she said, it's a working document, so it'll change in time, figures will be modified. This is a very good base, I think, to start with.
And that's the way I look at all of these. The first time we do them, we try to get everything that we felt was important, but then as you start to work with it, like anything else, you're like, oh, I wish we'd done this. Easy, right? You just add an extra page or take a page out, or the demographics will change as they get updated in your 2010 census. Wow, I'm a bit late. Your 2020 census. All that stuff will update. Okay. The larger of the two documents, this is your traditional economic development strategic plan. This is the one that I mentioned has the implementation, the action items associated with it. So the first few pages will look similar, but the language is slightly different. I have a letter from y'all in there that says, it sort of lays out what the plan was designed to do, talks a little bit about the process, and gives thanks to the people that supported the process and gave input to the plan. And then there's a little bit more of a focus on history. Shirley, I hope you like my photo of Fort Vasquez with the beautiful little buffalo. So we talk about where Platteville came from, because I think that's an important part of your story. And this is a similar piece of engagement, but different language than the marketing brochure, again, to keep it fresh. The next page, we added some icons here based on some feedback. The icons are just a really easy way for people who are geared toward this type of visual learning to say, what's going on in Platteville? We have a library, we have a museum, obviously our schools are important, energy production, service clubs. What's really funny is I told my graphic designer, like Rotary, and you see what you put in there, a rotary dial. I thought that was just adorable. And I thought that's actually not bad. It's kind of it's a cute little thing. So I left it. Parks, the railroad, agriculture, family farms and ranches, and then churches. Those are some of the really important things in Platteville. You can add to that. You can easily, keep working on this document. This is also sort of that true marketing piece. What do we have to offer? What are the opportunities here? We do have some of the same things. You can see the next page is the current economy and some of those current demographics, your population. I will note, just as a heads up, if you change one document, you should probably change the other. This population number flows throughout both documents at 3,003. Thank you very much. So if you change one here, we're going to want to make sure we change one somewhere else and have that domino effect. This goes into that population, the median home value, your labor force, the population is intended to grow, where we're located, we're only 15 minutes from some of the major universities in this state, etc. The page after that looks similar, but again, I added some different graphics. So it's your location, the same location map, but this one I wanted to highlight, how close we are to DIA, how close we are to various highways, and how close we are to rail. A lot of people in economic development look for those three things. How can I ship my stuff from point A to point B? How can I get quickly to the airport to conduct business? And how close am I to getting anywhere else I might need to be, like Denver or north to Wyoming or anything like that? The page after that is some specific to population graphs. You can add any graphs you like in here, but usually the typical ones for economic development, for people looking to invest somewhere, is how is your population going to grow? Because for retail, even for manufacturing, labor force, population is a driving demographic number. The next page through talks about industry characteristics. This is a different graph than the one in your marketing brochure. So this particular graph is about the actual industry, not the businesses. So this is where you're highlighting, the mining and natural resources, energy-based industry. This is also an opportunity for us to add some housing statistics when we're able to make that information happen. Housing specific to Platteville is not a statistic that's charted by the state demographer's office. So we have to generate that ourselves. And I know that we can do that with the help of, your planning people. So that can go in there at some point. Housing and housing starts and what types of housing are often a question economic developers ask. The same opportunities map, it's a copy, again designed to show people where some places might be that they can go, maybe take a tour of town and see what those are and what they look like. The same growth boundary map, and of course our same Troy hates them sideways maps. That all leads up to the strategic plan piece of the document. So that page that has the inverted pyramid is the start of the conversation around the strategic plan. What is a strategic plan? What process did we use? This is just a really visual way to say that you start broad and you bring it down. We were fortunate enough that you already had a vision and mission, so we used both of those in your plan, and those are located on that next page. The page after that was where we created the information, we created the language through the community process. And as you know, what we wanted to do was tie it into some of your existing plans, specifically your comprehensive plan. So you'll recognize some of those areas because they're very, very similar, if not exactly the same header as your comp plan. So community character, economic development, the environment, growth management, and infrastructure and amenities. You'll notice we also put an icon there. Icons can be really important for people to visually recognize. So you can start using those icons. They'll be a separate piece of your original file. You can start using those icons to do staff reports, or if you were going to issue a community document, you can stick the icon and relate it right back. And then there's the little definition under there, and then a few bullet points about what we're focusing on. The next page is really the big picture overview. And now I'm seeing, Mary, what you're saying about visual. This is really blurry, isn't it? Yeah. We can solve that very easily. So we took each of those areas of focus and we created goals and projects under them. And this was all based on your community input through your steering committee. So this is really their recommendation to you in terms of what they think you should focus on. I will tell you this, I know that you don't have the resources to focus on all of these at the same time, and that's really what that implementation plan that Troy's been working on is really all about. It takes these and says, how realistic is this, and how soon and how realistic is a time frame associated with this. So as we start working through that implementation plan, this piece of the document may change from time to time as well. It continues on to the next page. And then you have that final page again with that adorable photo and Troy's contact information. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Of course, you have some steering committee members here as well, some members of the community. They can answer some questions, maybe about some details if you like. But that is really the presentation in a capsule. Any thoughts about the plan?
I like it.
Well, I've seen it 14 times too, so it's got to be slightly boring to hear this one more time.
Cheryl had mentioned, if I made, being a working document, I do want to schedule our first economic development group. We decided group instead of committee. Meeting we're looking at next Wednesday. And the goals and projects that are in the plan are going to be the primary focus of that group, along with some other things to start us off. We're looking at meeting quarterly. But to keep it rolling, keep it rolling, and to make it into a true working document, you have to work on it and work on the goals, meet some objectives, and so on and so forth. bringing the downtown, bringing in retail, advertising property, working with businesses, so. And what this, I want this lead up to is, for a number of years now, in June or July, we typically have a real simplistic hamburger and barbecue down Lincoln Park for the businesses. You know, just a quick greet, meet, lunch. I'd like that to evolve more into not a business meeting, but more of a hands-on focus on to explain what this is and get their input, their buy-in. You know, because they're the ones, they're the businesses. We need their input and buy-in on how the town should grow and how we can help them. One topic was our regulations. Are they practical? Are they too stringent? Are they too loose? We know they're not too loose. I mean, we're government, so joke off. But that's kind of where we're going with that in next week, and I'll advertise that later this week.
At 6:30.
6:30?
Here at Town Hall, correct?
Yes. Next Wednesday at 6:30 here at Town Hall.
Wednesday, February 26th, 6:30 p.m. at Town Hall.
Thursday night I'll send out the message. And I have the emails from Cheryl, those who signed up to continue on the economic development group, and I'll email them specifically, as well as the community message.
Business leaders.
I don't have that whole list, but hopefully through some advertising and get that out.
And I think some things that are key about, you know, this ongoing rolling snowball effect we're creating is that if you advertise a meeting or if you ask people to be there, you might mention some of the specific topics. Because I do know we've had a group that's really interested in, like I mentioned, the shop local. There's another group that's very interested in youth recreation, so I think you might see them at an upcoming Parks, Trails, and Trees committee. And there's a group that's interested in the historic buildings, and so you'll find that people sort of gather or are attracted to the meetings where there's something that really talks or speaks to them. So it's good to say, hey, we're going to be talking about the Shop Local campaign. You can really use your thoughts. So. Well, I do want to say thank you. It's been great fun. You have a wonderful community here. Everybody was so welcoming and so receptive and just really pitched in and rolled up their sleeves. I know it doesn't surprise you, but that doesn't happen in all of my communities. And I was just thankful to be a little baby part of this. And obviously I'll be in touch and really trying to follow along with your success. So.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
The highlighted section of the goals and projects, we took 5 out of the comprehensive plan. The environment section, what in the goals and projects is going to actually benefit the environment in that part? I'd like to see something in there that shows Platteville is committed towards a more sustainable future of some sort.
Yeah, this is
Raping and pillaging the earth isn't exactly that, in my opinion, but.
Yeah.
That's for another discussion.
It is, and again, this plan is to be expanded on as we go through the economic development group and the board. This is to me, it's a final plan for adoption, but it's a working plan, so it's still in its infant stages, so to speak, because the community's still getting used to it. We are, certainly. And I look at all 5 of these goals or these characteristics, and I can add to every one of them. And that's the goal, that's the purpose of it, is to get some momentum behind it, actually do something, not just put it in writing. Good.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I entertain a motion, please.
I move to adopt the Platteville Economic Development Strategic Plan as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please, Mary?
Certainly. Harold Leggett, Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan,
Aye.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Cheryl,
Thank you.
for all of your hard work. All right. Moving on. C, Colo Trust Fund discussion, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I added this right before the agenda went out, so there's no information in your packet, but I do have a memo to the board along with our Colo Trust accounts. So if we could, want to pass one down, Mary, give you actually all those, there's some in it. So to prelude into this, during the last couple of months, I've been looking at budget. You can probably imagine that's one thing I focus on. And from the time we adopted the budget back in December till a few weeks ago, David Green, our account, was finishing up our year-end financials. It dawned on me that we weren't using, at least in my recommendation, putting our money wisely where it needs to be dedicated to. So in the last 3 pages, that's a summary pages of our 2 dozen or so Colo Trust accounts. And this is an interest-bearing, basically liquid account, basically it's our savings account. Some of these accounts are established, like the Capital Improvement Fund. It was established by the voters, and it's regulated, it's restricted. Other accounts over the years, and I'll summarize, this board over the years has established, like the downtown revitalization, the public works, the police station reserve, the sewer lagoon reserve, and those are what I'm going to focus on. So going to my memo, looking at the year-end financials and talking to David Green and Mary today, currently we have in the Colo Trust reserve account a little over $1.7 million. It's sitting there. It can be used for anything, but I consider that account as an emergency contingency for the general fund. We had tapered contingency, but this is really our true reserve. And then as of today, Mary verified in our checking account, we have another $1.7 million plus. So we're looking at right at $3.5 million sitting in the bank that's really not doing anything. Half of it's getting some interest at 1.85%. As you can see on the Colo Trust account, it's fine print, right edge above the categories. It'll show the interest rate. But looking at our capital improvement plan and our projects ahead, I wanted to make a recommendation to the board tonight to basically reallocate these funds into specific categories. And these categories, even though they're earmarked, they're still liquid, they're fluid. You can do what you want with it. They're not restricted once you do this. So going back to my memo, of that $1.721 million, I would like to transfer $1.2 million, of our checking account into Colo Trust. So that'll make it around $3.5 million. Working with David Green in the last couple of years, I like to keep about $500,000 in our checking account just to pay our bills. If we have large capital projects coming up, we put more in it. You know, for large street projects, the senior center, we did that, so on and so forth. But on average, that's more than enough. And then of that $3.5 million Colo Trust general fund account, which with that transfer, I'd like to do some reallocations for some large projects we've been working on. And I'll start with the sewer lagoon reserve. There's around a little over $238,000 sitting there a few years ago. According to DOLA and Don Sandoval, our former regional manager, and I haven't met our new manager yet, that water and sewer being enterprise funds are restricted. You can't mix money. But with the water or the sewer fund, and I'm estimating that the new plant, whatever we build, will be about $5 million. And he said you can use up to 10% of non-enterprise funds to help pay for that. So I'd like to increase that by $262,000 to make that a $500,000 fund. So we can reduce our debt service, so we can pay at least that much cash toward the project when we do build it. We just talked about our economic development plan. Years ago, the town established a downtown revitalization account in Colo Trust, currently a little over $264,000. I'd like to add $500,000 to that, make it about $750,000. That's going to be an expensive project when the time comes. I mentioned in here we're working with Excel to do some undergrounding. I emailed Al Ermer, the engineer, today to see when that is scheduled. Dave and I met with Lucas McConnell last week, and we discussed it as well. I really like Luke McConnell. He's a very, very young and aggressive regional manager for Excel, which is great. So we're looking at, and I don't have any estimates yet, but going into this next year, I'm reaching out to a gentleman I know that works for FHU. They're the primary consultant for CDOT. They do design engineering. I think we're at the point where we need to think about this summer contracting out a design engineering team that specializes on downtown redevelopment and start putting pencil to paper and actually getting cost numbers, cost estimates, and a picture design, not a concept. We have a concept already, which is old, by the way. Thirdly, the chief really wants a new police station, and I want the officers out of this building because they're taking up all the room. They take up half of town hall, quite literally. Just kidding, Carl. Right now, we set aside $238,000. I'd like to add another $500,000 to that, make it $750,000. I do want to go after a DOLA grant, but as each year goes by, those costs go up for construction. Okay, and that will also include a town-wide community storm shelter for tornadoes and severe weather. On the next page, Public Works, shop expansion. In recent years, we sold some properties, consolidate, we need to expand our base. We talked about that in budget. So I was looking at a $500,000 toward that. Right now, there's $136 in that fund. I mean, there's nothing there. And I mentioned in here in my notes, it's not just for the shop expansion. Our backhoe needs to be replaced. It's on its last leg. That's about $140,000. We do have a public facilities fund that can help with some of funding, but those impact funds only build with growth. Impact fees. So you can't count on those. A couple of new funds or accounts I like to establish looking at our capital improvement plan. Streets and storm drain reserve. We have a sidewalk maintenance fund which is restrictive. That has specific money coming in from the utility accounts. Then we also have money coming to the capital improvement fund, which a lot of that goes towards streets. Streets are very costly, big projects. And as we go after grants and do some of these projects like Reynolds Avenue, for example, I'd like to establish a fund in there to help backfill those funds or be used for grants. We did the storm drain master plan right before we did the raw water master plan. We haven't touched it yet. I've been looking at it, been looking at the recommendations. We haven't done anything yet. We need to start doing storm drain improvements. Reynolds is the first step that we're using off that plan. And then finally, Janet might like this, I like to do a reserve for parks and recreation. And these funds, looking at $250,000 to start with. And this can be for GOCO grant matches. This could be for new park replacements, shelter replacements, new facilities. It's not restrictive like impact fees. Those are supposed to be toward brand new facilities, not maintenance and not replacements. These are not going to be restricted. This is general fund money. You're just earmarking it. So these are my recommendations. You can move this around dollar-wise or names of accounts or come up with new ideas. When we need to buy water, I need to research more of the enterprise fund. If it's like the sewer fund, you have restrictions on what money you can use. So, but unlike the sewer fund, we don't have a water facility. We buy water. We just have pipes. So it's a little different than owning a sewer unit.
There's a water investment fund.
There's a water investment fund, which is our impact fees. We have 5 impact fees. In water and sewer, they're not called impact, they're called system investment fees. And the year ago December, the board authorized using $100,000 for perpetual care and about roughly $250,000, $400,000, I think, each in water and sewer, and we invested it on a 2-year bond, which comes due this December. So we've already done some financial investment with the water and sewer funds. And that brings up a good point, Spencer. Right now, Colo Trust is still getting 1.85% interest. Last year's over 2%. And you compare that with a 2-year bond. Right now, we have money at 3 to 3.05% interest, collecting interest. Let me mention the police department, police station as an example. If we know we're not going to build that out for 3 years, we may use that money and reinvest it into a 2-year bond and get a higher interest rate, better yield, instead of setting Colo Trust. But that's part 2 of this conversation for next month. This is part 1. So I just wanted to introduce you to this concept tonight. even though this is all general fund money, you could just stay in one general fund category, I think it's better driven, so to speak. You earmark it, and then you have goal to work for each project. You identify big major projects and you set funds aside. My goal as town manager, if we can pay cash and not go in debt, I'll always do that with the go into debt. We know we have to go into debt for a wastewater plant, no matter what. So, any questions so far? I know I'm throwing this out there, this is all new to you tonight.
I just wanna totally clarify, that water investment fund, we can't put additional monies into it, it can only get impact fees added to it, is that okay?
It's from water sales or enterprise, or basically it's established through the code, through a study.
So it's restricted.
It's restricted. It is restricted. You don't mix general fund money with water or sewer or with water and sewer combined. Except you can backfill sewer with up to 10% of a capital project cost.
I just like what you said about we need to buy water, so
Yep.
that would be a bad
I
idea.
was gonna ask you to have you.
And
have a
that's
There's only one that says water in there, we need to make it
Well-
more water.
And that's just it, is before we meet again, I wanna have part two of this conversation at the end of next month, the second meeting in March, and by then I'll know that answer on what restrictions or what options we have with that enterprise fund, okay? But this is just a suggestion to the board. I kinda want your feedback on where I'm going with this. This is not really an action item, because I'm not spending money. It's still in call of trust, it's just under separate accounts. And I think it's a good way to pursue projects because you have them identified and you can see a number with them. So, but that's really all I have right now for tonight.
Questions on that? I was fantastic idea.
You think of another project to fund besides what I've listed, I mean, we have a bunch, but these are the bigger ones I think that are out there in our capital improvement plan. Sorry, Spencer.
No, I was just gonna say, it could get busy with the amount of funds you have. As long as you can keep track of it, it's on you.
Well, Mary sends them to me usually the second or third day of each month, and I right away print them off. And like I said, over half of them are impact fees or enterprise funds are restricted. The cemetery is restricted. The senior organization was another fund we established last year to help the seniors out, which the money that was brought in from Curtis's efforts with donations and the seniors' efforts to match that grant with the senior bus. That went to this initially, and then we transferred it to the capital improvement fund to pay our bill when we bought the bus. So those are the things I track on a weekly basis. But I think we gain more, we get more done if we plan for it. So that's kind of what my goal is. So I'll expect to have the second part of this conversation next month, okay?
All right.
All right, I really like the idea of, putting, if we're not gonna use the money a year, 2 years down the road, let's put it invested in a bond so we get better interest on it. Instead of, 1.8, getting 3.5, 4 for taking advantage of the way the market is right now, so. Yeah.
And that'll be part of that conversation next month is, let's prioritize, not really prioritize, but see realistically, obviously, the police station. When is that actually gonna be built? When am I gonna write a grant? Because we need to do a grant first for the wastewater plant. So that's gonna be a 2021-22 project. The police station not gonna be 2023, hypothetically, then we can do a 2-year bond with high interest.
Yeah.
And get our money back in time to build that, so, just as an example. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. D, cancellation of the March 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Mr. Engel?
I would, as I indicated in my report, as of now, Mary and I, we don't have any action items scheduled for March 3rd, but I don't want to waste the night. I want to schedule a joint session of the Board and Planning Commission to talk really about water and water planning. And that's key to both the Board and the Planning Commission, because where this is going to go to with our water planning discussion is amending our regulations and our zoning regulations as we go forward. And I submitted that grant application, so hopefully we'll get that opportunity to do some additional training in May. I initially indicated I'd like to do it Platteville Foundation, our new 501c3, reading the bylaws last week. We need to have a quarterly meeting of you, do the Platteville Foundation. Just like the liquor authority, you just change your hat. And establish some, basically the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So that's a decision you need to make. And then let's talk about, I want a live conversation on what kind of grants we can start looking at in these foundation funds. So we'll do that, initially I said 6:30, let's do that at 7, and then we'll do the study session at 7:30, if that's okay. So 7 o'clock foundation, Platteville Foundation board meeting, and then 7:30 study session. And then with your approval tonight, then I will send that packet of information out to the planning commission, so they'll have it for the March 3rd meeting, give them 2 weeks notice. So that's what that's all about.
Is that Brad Hagan available?
I can see if he can be here. Absolutely. That's 2 weeks notice. I can see if he can be here. Because he did a raw water supply plan, and I don't think it needs to be updated, it just needs to be pursued. I think my memo, we've done bits and pieces and kind of behind the scenes. I really discussed with the board. We focused on wastewater the last 2.5 years. But
I think he'd be a good resource, probably. He has a lot of knowledge in the water rights, realm rights, we found ideas on
Absolutely.
hypotheticals.
okay. I'll reach out to Brad and see if he needs anything. He's just down in Frederick. Okay.
Thank you, Troy.
You betcha.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
So do we need to make that motion then, since we're still having the board meeting?
It's not a.
We're not having a board of trustee
Nope.
meeting.
Yep, we just.
You're canceling the board of trustees.
So I move to approve the cancellation of the March 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, meeting canceled. Moving on. Reports. Mrs. Torres.
So you have my recreation report in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Well done.
For the record, Jed and I talked to him. It's a thorough written report and then a very brief summary and answer questions of the board, just like all the formats.
And Carl said he has a lot to talk about, so. I'm leaving it up to him.
Were we still gonna do a meeting with coaches?
Yeah, we need to get that scheduled sometime.
I'm sure if you have not seen the schedule for the community center,
I have not.
it's like trying to find time to do that in the evening is just.
There's something about every night that Jan's gonna take some personal leave in.
Okay.
So March, we'll figure out a date, Adrian, and we'll get that scheduled.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about it, just trying to get it scheduled.
Any other questions for Janet?
And I will be out the 25th of this month through March 4th.
Hopefully you're doing something fun.
Going to Puerto Rico.
Yay! Right.
That's a long time.
I have a friend that lives down there now, so.
Any other questions for Mrs. Torres? Thank you, Janet. Okay, moving on, Chief Dwyer.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I just wanted to highlight a couple of small pieces of information that I wrote in here. Number one, we're hiring. We have one that I'm very hopeful for. He's already he's had his written exam. He had an oral board. He did his history examination just this afternoon, and so far so good. He's going to be moving on to psychological exam and written exam next week, and then hopefully we'll have him on by the beginning of March. So after a long wait, we finally have one. So I'm hopeful for, and I think he'll work out very well here. I did a sex offender update for you guys. We lost, over the past year, we lost one or two, which is always good for us as far as having a watchful eye. Other than that, I have nothing. I have to answer any questions.
questions? Comments? Thank you, Chief Garrett. Public Works.
David is on leave this week because he asked for some personal time off. So he's available. I told him he didn't have to attend tonight. He didn't have any action items.
Okay.
Is there anything to be concerned about with these major findings for the sewer lagoon?
When David met with CDPHE a couple months ago, I would say that major findings are not as major as they're saying they are. They've all been remedied. It's a different way of testing, as he indicated, is one of them. The other two I don't specifically recall without looking at, but we went over them in detail. I'm not concerned about it at all. I mean, our guys, for being a small department, they do pretty well. So.
Sounded to me like maybe the term major findings was a lot. But it had to go in a category and out of a couple of categories. That's where.
I've seen some communities, you know, for example, that haven't submitted their DMORs or their monthly report for 6 months. That's a major finding because you get fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are not major findings in that category. So these are very correctable. They've all been corrected. So.
Have you heard anything from Gross One on any sort of numbers, or is that something you wait for David?
I have not, but last week David reached out to Simon Farrell, JVA. Simon is going to have a meeting this or next week at CDPHE on another matter. He was going to see if he can maybe bump into David Kurz and see how things are going, because it's really their call now. So we're optimistic. So David thought first week or two of April we should get pretty clear direction which way we're going to go. So another 6 weeks or so.
Anything else? Okay, on to Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. A couple things just to summarize or bring out my report. I do get a lot of inquiries about the new 7-Eleven going in Caddy Corner. The site plan review has been complete. Melissa submitted a couple of edits, very minor. We're adding some signage for parking to regulate semi-trucks that don't stop on Grand or Main to run in 7-Eleven. That's going to be signed so long the police department can enforce it, so we don't have traffic jams or issues. We took another look at their traffic impact analysis because that intersection over there at 85 and Vasquez and Main can be pretty tough sometimes. Very minor overall. Earlier today I submitted, Melissa's on leave as well, but they wanted, 7-Eleven engineers wanted it's called a zoning and verification letter, so I sent that. Basically that is zoned properly for the use, for basically convenience store, fueling stations and fast food, where the tacos. And then also a conditional site plan approval, even though it's not final, it's conditional pending its responses back from Hunter Development Group, who's the firm developing the site for the 7-Eleven. So I sent that as well after reviewing Melissa's notes and felt comfortable saying that. They needed that for their closing, which is supposed to be in 2 weeks. So we're getting there, not quite. Once Randy has all his cars gone off his lot and the closeout sales sign that says sold, then I'm leaving. So, I mentioned this interview I did to Ames Community College. If you want more information, it's a very intriguing program that the Ames Foundation is pursuing called Building Futures, Changing Lives, for non-traditional students to go back to school and get some scholarships, including potential daycare and transportation. I think that's a huge win for Weld County if they can get that off the ground. Now that most of my kids are non-traditional, I'm hoping they go back to school. First Harvest Daze meeting, Adrian was in attendance along with several others. It was basically a recap from what we did last year. Really no changes going into 2020. We're going to do pretty much the same events. One item that is going to be new that I mentioned to Janet today, and she can attend the meeting, is we're looking at, there's always a complaint about nothing for the teenagers to do. So there was, I think Ashley from Anadarko Occidental mentioned that there's a a company out of Berthoud that provides, what's it called again? A gaming trailer.
Yeah, gaming trailer, I was gonna say.
Gaming, so you can get in there, you can play video games, age appropriate, they're monitored by adults. You get 20 minutes and then you gotta rotate so everybody has a fair shot, but.
There was another one out of Fort Collins, she'd given Devin.
And Devin found out that, I think that one or there's one out of Denver that had went out of business, but we're gonna go ahead and book the one out of Berthoud. And it's a 16-foot H station gaming, and there's like 3 different games to play. And again, we pick the games, you know, that are age appropriate. And I may put an age restriction sign on it. So the teenagers could actually play and not adults, because I know how this might work.
Yeah.
So I have a 24-year-old that really plays a lot, so anyway. Other than that, we just talked about canceling next regular meeting. I will send the planning commission, as I previously stated, this, I'll show them this grant application I sent to the planning workshop, land use planning workshop, and then the summary of the raw water master plan that the board has. I'll send that to the planning commission in preparation for the March 3rd study session. Otherwise, that's all I have for today.
Questions, comments, concerns? It was really quiet tonight.
Oh, real quick, see email. This year it's in Westminster, and I told Mary, I mentioned it, so I almost forgot. I don't recommend booking a room, but if you want to go, Mary can easily register you and just commute back and forth. I'm not going to the conference. I'll go down for the Sursa day on Wednesday, but I'm not going to go to the conference this year. I didn't see anything new so far. But it's at Westminster at this new conference facility
The
they have.
Westin.
Yeah. So if you want to go, let Mary know.
Have the classes come out yet, Sarah?
I haven't seen the schedule.
Not yet. Any other questions?
How are we looking on code enforcement, Troy?
We're looking.
When are we gonna have someone actually performing?
Officer Bonner's doing very light duty on code enforcement. Basically, he's working directly with me, and I'm sending him out on specific assignments. We're looking at, he's talking to property owners under my direction on prairie dog abatement. And last week, he was talking to me about snow removal for sidewalks. He was out there monitoring sidewalks and giving out notices. He's still a patrol officer right now, but here by next month, definitely April, he'll be doing a lot more code enforcement. So definitely want to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you're aware of as far as any code about cleaning your sidewalks off and putting the snow into the middle of the street?
You're not supposed to put any debris that could block traffic in the middle of the street or in the street. So pushing snow in the street or oil in the street in the summertime, debris and trash, we can cite all of those into municipal court. So I know that's an issue because we had a lot of that last week. We had complaints of people clearing out properly their sidewalk and their driveway, but more so the driveway pushing right into the middle of the street. And the neighbor comes into town hall and they complain. And then we send public works, and I sent Scott on a couple of them to make contact and get rid of the snow. And then it freezes, becomes a big ice ball.
I've received a lot of messages regarding that.
Yeah.
It blocks up the gutters and
It does.
freezes and makes the road icy.
And it's, here and everywhere I've lived, it's been a catch-22 on snow removal.
Absolutely.
No matter what anybody says or what you hear, Public Works does, if it's 2 inches or more, they'll hit all our main streets. If it's 5 inches or more, they'll make at least one pass through all the residential areas.
Right through the middle, right?
Through the middle, to the driving lane.
No.
Because years ago, when I was chief, I wasn't doing this job. I remember Public Works going back and forth because people wanted them, they were starting to clear closer to the curb, but people would shovel their sidewalks and driveways and then they'd throw it back on there, so we stopped completely. So residential, we just do 1 or 2 lanes in the middle. Dig yourself out, don't throw it in the street, throw it in your yard where it belongs, so the water can be in your yard when it melts. But they do, I've seen social media, it's not completely accurate, because that day I was here, the Public Works Director himself drove around Rogers Circle and Stevens Circle.
I
I watched it.
I did too.
So, I just wanted to point that out, and I don't get on social media, but wouldn't get anything done if I didn't.
That's
I'd
right.
like to ask a question. Shoveling, or,
Can you come to the podium?
okay.
Thank you.
Name, address, date of birth.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Color socks.
Larry Hatcher, 713 Rogers Circle, A negative. No, on shoveling sidewalk, it's almost, well, at the bomb cyclone, I think I talked to David, talked to Adrian. At least how I interpreted the code, it's okay to put the snow in the parking, but David said he'd like to use common sense. Now, I'm not talking out in the street, but like making a pile beside your driveway.
Yeah, there's a difference. Our complaints last week, they were putting it right in the
Right.
street, and people
Okay.
couldn't drive through the street.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have clarified.
Wanted clarification. So
But-
that's okay.
Yes.
The catch-22 of that, if you put it in front of your house in the parking, then you're gonna have storm drainage issues when it melts.
I shovel it out of the gutter.
So, it's, the only place, since you brought it up, Larry, the only place where you try to get next to the curb is along Main Street by the businesses.
Mhm.
And the last two snowstorms, I told the guys when they first go out to hit that first before cars park, it's along the post office and both sides of those two blocks, and also on Marion. We're trying to do a better job getting that cleared up, at least push to piles so people can park and
Mhm.
not slip. So,
Okay, we're good.
yep.
No, we do the same thing.
We won't give you a
Good
ticket
question.
if you put it for your.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I don't have any updates at this time. Committees?
We had a meeting last week. I don't think there's a whole lot new that came out that I haven't told you guys already. We're still looking to try to do a farmer's market of some sort. Other than that, the grant for the design on the trail system isn't even come out until August. So just some normal beautification type of stuff. Maybe a cleanup day. I think we talked about doing that maybe a little bit closer to spring. Like a town-wide cleanup day.
In
Pick up
conjunction
trash.
with our lagoons being open?
That's what we were
for
thinking.
dumping?
That's what we were thinking about doing. Was trying to find out the day of that and then having it the same weekend as the town
That'd be
cleanup
great.
days.
It was in the calendar that was released.
I don't think it was.
Oh, it
I don't
wasn't.
think it was established yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so David will do that, and that's March or April. How is
It
it?
usually does
Yes,
like the third
April
weekend of
and
April.
Yep, April and October.
We try not to plant too soon because of the March snow. And we can't get through it, it's too late. Speaking of grants, did you receive my email today, this afternoon? Okay. So,
Fair, bad news.
and the very bad news, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, the application for the splash pad and restrooms and facilities were not accepted. They had 59 applications,
$16.9 million requested.
16.9 million out of 15 applications. They granted 4.9 million to 17 applications. And as I indicated in my email to Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee, somebody contacted Madison, and she'll walk you through it. She'll help you build. She won't reach out to you. You have to reach out to her. And the same with GOCO. That's how I started writing GOCO grants. I just sit down with the regional director and say, "Tell me how to do this."
Right.
So, and some of it's timing. You know.
Probably some of the ones that got approved have tried before too, so.
Yeah.
Possible, yeah.
You don't know how to get up unless you fall down once in a while. So,
Absolutely. We'll go again next year and do it better.
you know, I think it's a great project, and
Build on what you have. That's a ton of work, oh my heavens.
I think the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee should be acknowledged for all the work they do.
Absolutely, yes,
So,
they have done, yeah.
Nick, are you still having a meeting next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple people who want to attend. Is that 6:30?
Yeah.
On your agenda, can you add and see if the youth committee is still interested in participating for the younger youth activities for Harvest Daze on Friday night and Saturday?
Friday and Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a schedule, Nick, so you have it for your meeting for Harvest Daze.
And if, yeah, they wanna, like they did last year, come up with a plan and.
Right. They talked about, briefly about Harvest Daze and helping out with that, so I can talk about that.
I think Janet would love to come to your meeting since she's a rec director and be part of your food.
Just not next Tuesday,
Yeah.
sorry.
And she said that last Tuesday.
Well, something about Puerto Rico or something, so I guess you have excuses.
By 6:30 at night, I may not be in any shape to be.
Are you still on track with the LGF risk of that land dedication?
Yep, right now it's still scheduled for board approval in May. They were wanting to do it the first meeting of April, and I said no, so we probably not gonna have the first meeting of April because of our election. And what that involves is an amended development agreement. What we have now with West Farms basically is gonna be scraped, and a new one, based upon those elements of land dedication, trail easement, long-term water storage options, and repaving 32.5.
Is there like a survey that needs to be done of the exact land that they're dedicating? So that we
They're gonna have
can
the
know?
survey and give me not a meet and bounds, but a survey parcel dedicated to the town. That's what I told them. So it'll be an 8 to 10 acre parcel, and I'm pushing for the 10. I would like the bigger number when it comes to land. And then from the bridge, 32.5 south, because West Farm goes a half mile north and south on both sides, 32.5. The south side would be a 10-foot trail easement that we could access and utilize as a trail, but we wouldn't own it. We'd only own the 10 acres on the north side.
A 10-foot easement?
That's what I'm pushing for.
Okay, so we wouldn't have access to the whole parcel, just to.
Nope.
Got it.
No. It'd be basically, that's where most of the turkeys are, so it'd be like a nature viewing area down there on the south side.
That's what I wasn't sure what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
That might make the gentleman who was at the last meeting happy as well.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
But the proposed trail would go down to the town right away on 32.5, which would right be next to that gentleman's property. So, but May, I'm thinking the first or second week. I haven't heard back yet. Actually, LG Everest's attorney and Kinder are working on that. So
So it's gonna be a big spring with the stuff coming in, 7-Eleven.
yep, I think 7-Eleven definitely wants to break ground sometime this summer and get rolling.
Park, fabulous. Anything else before the board?
I got an email from Jeff Nuttall. BizWest is hosting a Net Zero Cities conference at the ranch in Loveland on March 5th. Basically, just a conference on sustainability, some of the stuff we talked about a little bit earlier. I would like, it's $65. I was hoping for permission / speak funds to attend.
Yeah, the board has a spending allowance for training and travel. Absolutely.
And I'll give a report on what the findings.
Now, when is that again, Spencer?
March 5th.
Okay.
Before.
Okay. Since we know we won't have the next regular meeting, I'll cancel dinner to attend. Just a quick reminder, tomorrow night, Senior Center at 6:30 for the Reynolds Avenue project discussion.
6 o'clock.
Sorry, 6 o'clock, getting my economic development plan meeting mixed up. And then also next, actually later this week, I go to Weld County, I think it's Wednesday afternoon at 3:30, to find out if we get the multimodal options funding for the new sidewalk on Division. So I should know that come Wednesday, tomorrow, by the time I get through the meeting that night.
Perfect.
So.
Anything else before the board? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I saw that come through and I was like,
So you're looking.